Hey guys, it's time for chapter 15 of Woods Runner by Gary Paulson. Last time we left Annie and Samuel and Abner traveling to New York in Abner's wagon. We also discovered more about Abner. He is a trader in secrets. He's a peddler, which means he has a lot of junk in his back, in the back of his wagon that he sells and trades. But he's also got these illegal papers that let him pass through the British, so he can collect information about what's going on. And supposedly he sends that information somewhere. We're not sure how he does that yet. So let's see if we learn anything else about Abner. First, I'm going to read you this excerpt about covert communication. Both the Americans and the British military forces disguised their communications so that messages could not be easily read if captured by their enemies. Prearranged letters or words replaced other letters or words, all of which had been memorized by huge numbers of different people. But the secret codes were frequently and easily broken. Mathematical codes were experimented with, but the complexity limited their effectiveness, especially given the length of time it took to pass messages from one party to another. Invisible inks that could be made visible with heat or a series of chemicals, as well as messages hidden in common publications such as pamphlets and almanacs, were common ways to ensure the security of sensitive information. This is very similar to like National Treasure, where they found like a secret message on the back of the Declaration of Independence, and they found it out with like lemon juice and a hair dryer. Okay, chapter 15. They were still several days away from the city of New York, and an almost constant stream of refugees came at them. Some had obviously been soldiers, or fighting men of one kind or another. There were many with wounds, wrapped in crude bandages. Abner stopped the wagon and furnished bandages for those who didn't have them. He also had a supply of laudanum, a painkiller that was half opium and half alcohol, and he gave some of the gravely wounded a small bottle. "Take it sparingly," he said in a deep voice. "Best at night before sleeping." To everyone, he said, "Stay off the roads. Redcoats are about." Cart after wagon after cart passed them, being pulled by mules or oxen. A goodly number of people were soldiers, but the vast majority were civilians, often whole families. "Where do you suppose they're all going?" Samuel thought of the devastation on the trail to his rear. It certainly didn't seem like a safe place. Hessians, soldiers, savages. Down to Philadelphia? Abner nodded. At times, travelers were so thick, Abner had trouble moving the wagon through. "Are they running from the redcoats?" This from Annie, who teared up when she saw a little girl trudging along and holding a doll by one arm. "That and more," Abner said. "Not just the soldiers. Like I said, some of them aren't that bad. I mean, a while ago, we were all loyal Englishmen. It's more of what the redcoats signify. The English crown has become a way of life these people no longer want. Part is they're scared and don't know what will happen, but along with that, these people are sick of being told what to do by a crazy king who lives 3,000 miles away and doesn't care about them one way or the other." "What do you mean, crazy?" Samuel asked. "King George," Abner said. "They say he's crazy as a bag of hazelnuts. They've got people to catch him when he runs wild, put his clothes on when he tears them off, watch him when he sleeps so he doesn't kill himself. He's no man to run a kingdom." Did he start the war? It seemed a logical question. The war was so crazy. Maybe a crazy man started it. Probably not. It began on this side of the ocean in Boston, not over there. People were sick of being threatened and treated like livestock. The dogs had been going ahead now and then to greet some people, their tails wagging, holding back with others, but now they dropped well back, and Abner stopped the wagon. British coming. If he hadn't seen the dogs, he would have known anyway. All the men who looked like patriot soldiers had evaporated off the trail into the brush. The soldiers came marching in a file. Not Hessians, but regular British soldiers. There must have been 200 or 300 of them, as near as Samuel could estimate, marching in loose root step, followed by supply wagons. They did nothing threatening. They didn't stop at all, except to work around the wagon that couldn't get out of the way soon enough. Abner watched them go by in silence, nodding at some of them, and when they were gone, he started up the mules. It was late in the day, and he said, "Why don't we stop for a good meal tonight?" They had been eating corn and venison, which is deer meat, which was almost gone. Samuel had been thinking he should take his rifle and head off into the woods for another deer tomorrow. "What do you mean?" "I mean, have somebody else cook us a meal. Say, that people on the farm over there?" He pointed to a farm set well back off the road, with neat white fences and a white painted house. "Right there." Samuel and Annie said nothing. The house reminded Samuel of Annie's home before the Hessians, and he wondered if she felt the same. As they had gotten closer to the city, there had been more and more cleared farms. Some were nice, even beautiful. Some had been attacked and burned, probably by the Hessians, but many had not. It made no sense, nor did it follow any logic, like so much of what had happened. Abner pulled the wagon into the long drive and then the yard. There was a wooden watering trough by a hand pump, and the mules went to it and started drinking. Abner, Samuel, and Annie climbed down from the wagon. "Let them drink," Abner said. Mules won't blow themselves by overdrinking the way horses do." There was a barn, painted red, as Caleb's had been. Samuel sneaked a look at Annie, but she seemed to take it in stride. A man came from the barn. He was tall, thin, and had a tired felt hat, which he pushed to the back of his head. He started to say something, but before he could get anything out, Abner held up his hand. "Name's Abner McDougal. Honor to the house, we come in peace. I have a fine set of sharpening stone. Will and I repair and sharpen all tools in the house and barn. I work for one good meal for me and the barons." "Well, also I buy and sell rags. I have some nice linen rags, and if a lady of the house needs some soft garment material—" He spoke fast, never letting the man get a word in. "If you don't need anything we've got, we'll just thank you for the water of the meals and be on our way." The man removed his hat and rubbed his head. "Well, I've got some sickle bars that could use a honing, and I expect Martha has some knives that need touching up." "No sooner said than done. Sam, why don't you go get the sharpening wheel down and we'll get to edging things up?" Samuel, who had never been called Sam in his life, went to the back of the wagon and peered into the mess. He hadn't really looked at it before, but now, as he pulled some things aside, he found a sharpening wheel, a wooden frame with a treadle and a small tin cup to drip water on the stone. When he pulled it out of the way, he found a wire-covered crate pushed under some things. It had some kind of birds in it, and on closer examination, he saw those birds were pigeons. Live pigeons. How strange. He hadn't even known they were there. Why were they hidden? He took the wheel down and put it by the trough water, filled the tin cup, and hung it by the wire over the wheel so water could drip from the small hole in the can onto the stone. He made sure the treadle worked and the wheel spun. The man came from the barn with 3 hand sickles that had long curved blades used for harvesting wheat or other grains. Abner took one, stood by the wheel, and then gestured to Samuel to start pumping with his leg to get the stone spinning. Abner held the first blade against the stone. As it turned, making a scraping hissing noise, and the steel edge ground down to a razor sharpness. Samuel was amazed at how easily the stone spun. This shouldn't take long. How peaceful it all seemed. He kept pumping until the sickle was done, then another. Samuel switched pumping legs a little tired, and another. He switched legs again, legs a little more tired. Then 3 axes, 2 picks, a tomahawk, a set of rail-splitting wedges, 6 of them, for slaughtering, and sticking knives, and 4 butcher knives that Martha, a short, thin woman who was all smiles, brought from the house. Then an ice chisel, 2 separate hay knives, 2 planking adze, 1 shingle froe, and at last an old cavalry saber that the farmer named Micah used for chopping corn. Samuel staggered over to the trough to wash. Abner put his whole head under water and then shook like a dog. He pulled his hair back and combed his beard down, and Samuel saw Micah smile at him. He saw something else there, a look of what? Recognition? As if they had already known each other. The meal was good, very good, though not up to what he had eaten at Caleb's. Venison stew, piles of sweet potatoes, fresh bread with butter, apple pie made with maple sugar and fresh buttermilk, cool from the Springfield house on the side of the barn, in quantities to fill even Samuel. He was shy about asking for seconds, but Martha kept piling it on, and he ate gratefully. Sit-down meals were rare in his life, even before the war. He winced at that thought. Before the war. There didn't seem to be such a thing anymore. What with his living in the woods on the hunt most of the time. But being a guest was almost unheard of, and he wasn't sure how to act. He didn't have to worry. As with Caleb and Ma, Micah and Martha made eating enjoyable, not something to fret over. When they were done with seconds and thirds on the pie, even Annie ate like a wolf. They went out on the porch to sit, while Michael and Abner lit up clay pipes with coal from the fireplace. Food gets better every time I stop here, Abner says, ending the mystery. I didn't think it was possible. She can cook, Michael nodded, smiling. In fact, there ain't much she can't do. Annie and Samuel sat on the edge of the porch. The dogs were in the dirt in front of them. Annie was about to doze off, but Samuel wanted to listen, so he sat, drawing pictures in the dirt with his stick. The dogs watching with a kind of casual interest as the stick moved around. Know anything about what happened in New York? Abner asked. How it went? Micah shook his head. Not much. The English took it and a bunch of prisoners. They've moved in. The English took over houses for their own. They ain't making a lot of friends. Of course, that doesn't seem to bother them much, not making friends. The way they brought those damn Hessians into it, hiring mad dogs. The passes I brought you working out? So far. I'm more worried about the scavengers hitting us, the wild ones. The wild ones would kill you for a turnip, but still here, ain't we? Good. I've got some more birds to leave, but you still have that hutch in the back of the barn? Yes. Same as before. Send one if anything big comes along. I'll send one this evening. We saw a large detachment heading up the road today. Maybe 200. They ought to know about it back in Philadelphia, if the Hawks don't get him. I don't know how, if any of them get past the Hawks. Well, there's always that, always some risk, but it's better than nothing. The pigeons are for carrying messages, Samuel thought. He glanced at Abner out of the corner of his eye. There was so much more to him than he'd thought of at first. The men sat smoking in silence for a moment. Then Abner said, You said they took some prisoners? Samuel's parents weren't military, but they took them prisoners anyway. They're doing that, Michael nodded. No sense in it. Just see a man working in the field and take him prisoner. Stupid. Like they think the crops are going to grow themselves. You know where they're keeping the prisoners? Not certain. There are warehouses and an old sugar mill. You remember that 3-story thing they built to mill sugar? Abner nodded. Along the waterfront. Yes, I think they might use that, along with the warehouses. There are thousands of prisoners. I don't know how they'll feed them. Plus, I suppose plenty of them were wounded. It can't be good for them. Well, Abner said, knocking his pipe onto the side of the porch. This, Samuel saw, made the dogs stand up and get ready. He was amazed by them. They saw everything. "Well, we'll see what we can see," Abner said. It was starting to get dark. "You mind if we sleep here tonight? We'll be out of here early." "Why would I mind? There's new hay in the loft. Makes a good bed, long as you don't smoke." And with the mules unharnessed, fed hay, and put out in a pen for the night, Abner took time to put 2 pigeons in the hutch in the back of the barn. He wrote something on a tiny piece of thin paper, tied it to a 3rd pigeon's leg, and let him go. He and Samuel and Annie watched the bird fly away to the south. "He'll roost somewhere overnight if he doesn't get there before dark. It probably is only about 40 miles in a straight line. An hour away they move, so he should make it." Imagine moving through the air at 40 miles an hour. Just imagine. Later, lying on the new hay, with the clover smell thick around him, Samuel could hear Annie breathing regularly in sleep. He teetered on the edge of it, but before it came, he said to Abner, who was lying just above him on the stacked hay bales, "You and Micah aren't what you seem to be, are you?" "We are," Abner chuckled. "Exactly who we seem to be, and maybe just a little bit more." And that concludes chapter 15. So we just realized that Abner and the farmer are actually the farmer Micah. They work together to try and send messages to the south, Philadelphia, which is held by the Americans. So they kind of are spies, and they're using pigeons to transport information. Wow. Okay, so Abner just got 10 times more interesting, and his involvement in the war is a lot more than we all expected. So definitely take notes on what he and the farmer are up to, and maybe about how they're sending information, because he's on the edge of New York, so he sees whatever's going to Philadelphia, so he can warn them and like hours or days in advance. Pretty amazing. Don't forget to take notes, guys. Bye.